Nathan Barr is the composer of The Great. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I want to start things off by asking you, Nathan, when composing for this show, what is the most important thing for you?
I think plugging into the emotional journey of the show, it's such a brilliantly written show by Tony. And it's hilarious and horrifying and exciting. And I think the music needs to sort of plug in and help that. The great thing about this show, the great, is that the performances are so good and the writing's so good. The music is never really about saving something that isn't working. It's just about gently supporting, you know? Sometimes as composers, we're asked to come in and try and help a performance that they don't feel is working, or sell a story moment that isn't landing, and that's never the case with the great. It's always just sort of giving a little support and staying out of the way. So
Mm. The show, has some really dark emotional moments. There's also moments of real, well, dark comedy, like a lot of darkness, but there's comedy, there's emotion. How as the score do you navigate those different tones that the show weaves in and out of?
yeah, I mean, it's sort of easy again because it's so well done. I always watch the show for the first time during spotting. I don't generally read scripts because I love experiencing a show as a fan. It helps me plug into it more as a composer if I'm seeing it for the first time as opposed to reading the script and then watching it unfold once they film it and edit it. So yeah, I'm so excited about everything I see on the show. I'm just reacting to that, right? So Elle's her emotional moments in particular are just so incredible. And so I don't need to really do much. If you're a good composer and you know how to plug into a great performance, it kind of just happens.
Mm.
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge for you in season three?
I mean, the biggest challenge in season three is the same challenge that was in the first two seasons, which is it's not a ton of music, but it's broken up into many tiny bits. So, there might be 12 minutes of music in an episode, but it's broken up into like 20, 25 cues. Every one of those cues is a different thought, a different setup, a different emotion. And so it's very time consuming and tedious to work through an episode because there are so many different little bits of music. But I mean, that's really the biggest challenge of the show.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
And what's your favorite thing when you were writing the music for the show? What
I
brings you
mean,
the most joy?
the show again, just I hate to keep saying it over and over again, but I am such a fan of the show. This is a show I would absolutely be watching religiously. I'd binge it in a heartbeat if I weren't doing it. So I just sit down and when I watch it, I'm just always like, man, I'm so lucky to be on the show. It's incredible. The people are great. Marion and Tony are such amazing collaborators. They're really easy to work with. They know what they want. They know how to direct me to get it, and that's not always the case. So it's just pure pleasure, and I love being shocked at where the show goes. Have you seen all of season three?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's some real shockers this season,
Mm.
and they're so artfully unfolded. Like I never know where Tony is taking the story next, and so that's one of the great joys of being a part of the show.
Yeah, what is something like you talked about how it's the show you'd watch if you were a fan and you weren't working on the show and all those sorts of things. So what do you think so special about this show and what do you love about this show and this story?
Yeah, I think I mean obviously Catherine the Great is an enormously compelling character in history. Very forward-thinking leader, right? And I think the fact that Tony has taken the story of Catherine and turned it on its head, and as you see, it's loosely based on historical, facts in the show, it says. And so I just love how he's taken this character who was already interesting out there in the world and brought even more humor and compassion and drama to it. I think she's such a fascinating character, as is Peter, and all of the characters around them too, right? Velementov and Grigor and Archie. They're just all incredibly well thought out characters. They're all constantly scheming. They're oftentimes their own worst enemies, so they're always making decisions that are largely, purely selfish, except maybe for her. And it's just sort of fun to see how that's getting them into trouble all the time.
Yeah, the characters make these big decisions. As someone doing the music for the show, was there any like what was one of the big decisions you had to make this year?
I mean, I think there's a big story. I won't have any spoilers here, but there's a big story moment that happens halfway through the season, as you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
It'll be a shock to some people, not a shock to others, but that was a moment, like so many, where we have to decide how to tread, and you don't want to go in too heavy with the emotion in a moment like that because it's already playing well on screen. And I think Tony and Marion are rightfully so very allergic to anything that smacks of melodrama or starts to lay it on too thick, as far as emotion. So I think that's a challenge, um, that we encounter, but that is fun. I mean, there's a choir piece at the end of episode 7 during the end credits. And that was a fun, new, fresh thing to write this year. It happens after a crucial story moment. Again, I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but I'm going to read it. I used a Latin text. Ame meus dum dole, si dole signum bonum est. So it's love until it hurts. If it hurts, it is good. And I just love that thought as something, as an emotional in with Catherine. She has so much pain in her life, but oftentimes it's those things that hurt her most that she loves most. Like, I guess, life as well. So
Mm.
yeah.
And I guess all the things that form her and shape her and make her who she is. So that's yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You talked about like there was like a choir that you sort of worked
Yeah.
with and stuff like that. How do you use like different instruments and things in the scoring and the music of the show?
Yeah, so it's an orchestral score, and this season I'd say the big change, and not they're not big changes, but I leaned with my orchestrator more into woodwinds. So we've always had bassoon and flute; those have been very important instruments. Bassoon for Velementov and Orlo, and flute oftentimes for Catherine. So we added clarinet and oboe. So just to fill it out and change the score ever so subtly, most people won't notice, but it's a way for me as a composer and us to sort of keep pushing the boundaries of what the score is. There's also a new end credit this season. They're only 7 seconds, so it's very quick. but I've always liked that challenge, and I think people will hear there's a funny off note chord at the end of the main title, and that was just done on the day we were playing. And I just at the last minute, as the orchestra was playing, I thought, it's a little bit too perfect for a show that's about so many imperfect people. So I said to the orchestra, like, when we get to that last chord, just play whatever note you want. And so they did. And it was, I didn't know if I gave Marion and Tony two options. I gave them that option, and I gave them the expected chord, and they unhaltingly went with the unexpected bizarre chord. It's very subtle, but it works with the show in a nice way.
It does not surprise me they went with that one, given this
Yeah,
show often goes with the unexpected bizarre.
yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And I also think it's cool you said so you have like different instruments for different characters.
Mhm.
Like
Sometimes,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's
There's
really yeah, you go.
Yeah, I was going to say that balalaika is a three-string Russian plucked instrument. So that's definitely something that gets used largely for Peter, but it's really across the show is sort of like the one Russian, overtly Russian element that sits in the score of the show. Everything else is not necessarily pointing to Russia in a specific way. That was another thing we wanted to avoid. But yeah, some of the characters, I guess I'd say, like I mentioned, bassoon is something that works a lot with Orlo and Velementov really well.
Oh, it's so funny. Because you got episode I think 8 of the season is called Peter and the Wolf.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is all about different characters represented by instruments. This is the
It's
Peter and the Wolf.
it's true. It's true. And I think that even in the beginning when I started on this show, I realized pretty quickly it has a very Peter and the Wolf feel, right? The characters are very big and overt, right? Belamentov is a big general and needs something sort of slightly clumsy as he is. So yeah, it's been a really fun show that way to sort of plug into all the different character motifs and yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And thinking about Catherine, the title character of the show, the great herself. You said you used a flute for her. Why a flute for Catherine? How does that
She's
represent?
She's flute is not specifically her all the time, but
Mhm.
like the way I write for flute in the show, flute can be very feminine in a way and lyrical, but it can also have some real bite to it. And I would describe Catherine that way, right? She is dressed to the nines. She's like really beautifully appointed all the time, but she's got teeth and she knows how to lead and she knows what needs to happen to lead. And so if you overblow a flute, you put too much air through the mouthpiece. It creates almost like a screech sound, or a high pitched piercing sound, and I like that for Catherine because when she needs to sort of uh, you know uh, lay down the law, she knows how to do it, and I think the flute played like that helps.
We see over the course of the 3 seasons change in characters too. We see Catherine, like, has gone on a real journey to end up where she is by the end of season 3. Do you have to approach the music a bit differently? And does that evolve as the characters evolve?
To a point, yes, but again, because it's not a show that leans into giant score pieces,
Hmm.
it really is at the end of the day about those. Most of the time it's about those little transitions. But yeah, Catherine is definitely there's a theme, there's a simple motif that's about her scheming and plotting. And that changes a little bit over the course of the 3 seasons as she sort of comes into her own as a leader.
Mm, like it. We're an awards site at Gold Derby. We love
Yeah,
talking our awards, and particularly the Emmy Awards. It's my favorite. It's a lot of us that work at Gold Derby's favorite awards. You won an Emmy in 2020, correct?
and
For
I did, yeah.
doing the main title theme for the limited series
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Very
Exactly.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
That was
what
a fun
what
one.
what did that mean with you to win that?
I mean, it was great. Like I was saying to someone yesterday, not all of it, not all of your fears and tragedies in life magically melt away when you're when you have an Emmy, but it is a beautiful way to be acknowledged by your peers that the work you're doing is being heard and appreciated. So that's kind of what's really cool about it. Because it's basically some other composers giving that award to other composers, and I was very proud of that piece. I was very proud of that theme, and so I was happy to see that win. And it's a very challenging show to work on. It was the deadlines were super intense, and yeah, it was great though. It felt like a great well deserved for all the insanity of the process.
Oh, well, like when you won that Emmy, you said that the main titles you often associate with your childhood or something to that effect.
Hmm.
Um, what were some of your favorite main title theme songs or music when you were a
Yeah,
child?
I mean, bizarre, like the Incredible Hulk. Do you remember that theme from the 80s? It was like it's this piano theme.
Yeah.
Which was like very melancholy. I always thought it was so interesting that they chose like this. I mean, it's about a man who's very sad at some point, but so that was one of the ones that stuck with me growing up. The A Team, as a kid, that was a huge theme that stuck with me. And then there were so many great, like the Jeffersons, MASH. Like there were just so many great, super melodic themes back in the 80s and 70s in a way that we don't hear anymore. In exactly the same way. So it was yeah, it was back in the day when people were not afraid to make a really cool main title, right? Like these
Yeah.
days, main titles are largely getting shorter, or disappearing altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
you know, like if you're the great, you get like one off chord or something, or like some seconds.
7 seconds. I
Yeah,
think the shortest main title I've ever done is 7 seconds, I think. Yeah.
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 And look, that's longer than some shows get these
I
days.
know. It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
so yeah, no, that's really cool. What make like whether it's 7 seconds or a minute, what makes a great TV main title theme?
Yeah, I mean, I think what makes a great main title is usually a good melody or a very unique sound that's specific to that show, right? Like
Mm,
I said, like it's like someone once described it as like that thing you hear when you're in your kitchen getting popcorn that makes you want to run back in to catch the start of the show. So yeah, I think it just wants to be really original, unique, and pull you in and be memorable and stay with you after you leave the show. So
mm,
when you hear it, it just brings back the entire show.
yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. I think the Americans was another main title that I felt good about, and that was 21 seconds or something, and
yeah,
and that was yeah. They're always a challenge, but they're always an exciting challenge. I love writing main titles. I think they're really fun.
yeah. And like they do like really establish the world and tone of the show, don't they? Like, you know, they're so important. And even the great, like that just dun
Mhm.
dun dun or whatever, that's not
Yeah,
the right
yeah,
chords, but just it sets
yeah,
that the way an occasional true
yeah.
story pops up and just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's immediately identifiable as the show. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is good.
Do you what have you learnt about music and scoring and composing from working on the great?
It's a good question. Um, I gotta think about that. I mean,
Right?
I guess I've learned my endure like with a show like The Great, where it's I mean, in the first 3 seasons, there have been hundreds and hundreds of cues. So I've learned about what it takes endurance wise to like keep churning out little, these little bits of music throughout the throughout the season. And you really have to plan ahead. Usually you look at the minute count of a show and you go, oh, 12 minutes. I could do that, in 3 days next week. And then you go, oh, wait a minute, it's 25 cues. And that all of a sudden it's a week or more that you need. So that's one thing I've learned is the endurance of that many cues. But the other thing, every time you work with a new showrunner, there's a different way of communicating. And so I've come to learn how Marion and Tony express themselves when they're talking about music, and it's just delightful. Like it's one of those shows. Not all shows are pleasant collaboration. Sometimes it's very challenging, but The Great really is one of those shows where it's just an absolute pleasure when we're discussing music. There's a lot of laughter, and there's a lot of they trust me, which feels great. When anyone's a creator or a creative on the show, feels good to know that the ones who are creating the show have trust in you. So yeah.
Ah, yeah, that's awesome. Nathan, thanks so much for talking with us today. All the best of luck for the Emmy Awards for the Great this year. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to follow our awards coverage there. And again, Nathan, just thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.